Everything is bigger in Texas, they say, including the wide receivers now, because Cam Coleman is a big acquisition literally on the field, big acquisition for a statement off the field as well. Brad Kellner of On Longhorns is here to discuss. Brad, what was your initial reaction to Texas revamping their receiving room with, the number one wide receiver in the transfer portal?
Yeah, what a pickup for Steve Sarkisian and what a pickup for Arch Manning, right? The two happiest men in Austin, Texas today. Yeah, great news for Texas. Look, the first 4 or 5 days of the portal window had not been kind to the Longhorns. Way more departures than additions, way more swings and misses than actual gets. And to end up with the top player in the portal at a major position of need, a guy who is going to be instrumental to the success of this Texas football team in 2026. Just a big-time pickup for Texas. And can't wait to see what Cam Coleman can do with Arch Manning and a very star-studded cast of characters on this Longhorn offense.
You mentioned it being a position of need. Weird to talk about with Texas, given the guys they've put in the NFL in the last few years, but I don't think you could have watched Texas this year and reached any other conclusion. And look, I had heard, and this has to make it a little sweeter for Texas fans, because Texas A&M was the school he was committed to before he committed to Auburn coming out of high school. So Texas is looking up going, we got a rivalry win that then led to a first-round playoff exit and got the top guy in the portal that the Aggies were thinking they were perhaps going to obtain. Does that sweeten the pot a little bit?
It doesn't hurt, Spencer. And you look at the other 3 finalists for Cam Coleman. Not only did you have Texas A&M, but you had Texas Tech, obviously an in-state rival. And we know how well Tech has done in the portal these last couple of years. It is rare that if they want a guy, they don't get a guy out of the portal. And then also Alabama, obviously another SEC team. So for Texas to outbid and outwin this thing against A&M, but also find a way to take them away from Alabama and Texas Tech, that makes this a lot sweeter for Longhorn Nation without question.
I think if you're an Auburn fan, the one silver lining right now is at least it wasn't Alabama.
Yeah.
Because, man, and by the way, Bama's got a receiver need. Zay Horton is at Texas A&M now. If you missed that transfer portal move, there have been, literally thousands of guys moving around. I'm trying to keep track of all. I got a note sheet that is longer. I'm not going to make that metaphor. Anyway, so I think that what Texas just pulled off here is a big-time statement, of course, and it is awesome for Sark, great for Arch Manning and whatnot, but what are the realistic expectations for Cam Coleman, and how does he shift the expectations for Texas in 2026?
Yeah, starting with Cam Coleman, I mean, you look at the numbers he's been able to put up on a bad Auburn team with mediocre at best quarterback play. I mean, now you pair him with a guy who's the Heisman favorite in 2026 on a Texas team that's likely to be a preseason top 5, maybe a preseason top 3 team going into the fall. Feels like the sky is the limit for him. And you also look at the job Steve Sarkisian has done with some other portal receivers that he's brought to Texas. Adonai Mitchell in 2023 put up great numbers, ended up being a top 50 draft pick in the NFL draft. Matthew Golden, just saw what he did for the Packers over the weekend, right? Came to Texas from the University of Houston, had a great year, put up great numbers, and ended up being a first-round pick. Cam Coleman doesn't need that help. That guy could not play a snap of college football, and he's a lock to be a first-round pick in 2027. But with him, also Ryan Wingo and Emmett Mosley, that's as good of a top 3 in a wide receiver room as anybody in college football has. So you can't just focus on Cam Coleman because Texas has so many other weapons in the passing game. And again, with much better quarterback play than what he's had the last couple of years, I feel like it's not super unrealistic to think Cam Coleman can be 8, 9, maybe 1,000 yards if Texas is playing deep into the playoff next year. And then obviously for the Longhorn offense, right, Spencer, it's not just Cam Coleman. Now they've added 2 top 5 transfer running backs, including Hollywood Smothers, right? Speaking of taking down Alabama, Texas basketball beat Alabama over the weekend. And then Texas gets Cam Coleman, who Alabama wanted. And then they get the flip from Hollywood Smothers, who is committed to Alabama. Plus, Raleek Brown is coming. Like, Texas has added so much talent to its offense. They still need some more up front on the offensive line. There's no doubt the job is not done, but you've got one of the best quarterbacks in the country. You now have one of the best backfields in the country. You've got maybe the best wide receiving trio in college football. I know Ohio State and a couple of other teams have arguments to make there, but it really does feel like the sky is the limit for what this offense can be under Steve Sarkisian's tutelage in 2026.
So you mentioned Smothers and Raleek Brown announcing that he was going to stay amidst that portal commitment, I think was pretty significant, because I think about a backfield for Steve Sarkisian that doesn't have Wisner to carry the football anymore, of course. And I go, well, wait a minute. If you've got not just one but two running backs now, of course, the trick for Texas, I don't know if they know this over there in Austin, keep them healthy. Yeah. Keep them healthy and on the field. Maybe lessen their practice load a little bit, guys. Just easy does it with the, what do you do, fist fighting drills? I don't know. No, something's been a little strange. But that backfield with Arch Manning and those weapons on the perimeter, second year of Arch Manning and Ryan Wingo with Mosley as well, bring in Cam Coleman. I think if you lined up your top, 7 most statistically important guys on offense, I think Texas can go toe-to-toe with anybody in the country.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree. And look, the offense, Texas went 9-3 against a very tough schedule this year. It wasn't a bad year per se, but look, they started the year as the number 1 team in America. They'd been to the playoff in back-to-back seasons. So to not make it to the CFP was a disappointment. So there was some pressure on Steve Sarkisian to find a way to make his side of the ball, really the entire team, but especially his side of the ball, because the offense was the more inconsistent aspect for Texas in 2025. He had to find a way to make that group much more effective and explosive in 2026, and he's been able to do that. And yeah, everyone's going to focus on Cam Coleman, and rightfully so. He's that type of talent. But Texas had its worst rushing attack in 81 years. Seriously, they averaged less yards per game on the ground in 2025 than they had in any season since 1944, Spencer. Yeah, I see the look on your face.
Whoa.
I'm not lying with that stat.
Whoa.
So, Sark has always, every year he's been a head coach or an offensive coordinator, he's always had at least one 1,000-yard rusher until 2025. And Trey Wisner, who was Texas's leading rusher, barely got to 500. He needed the A&M game, the final game of the season, to get over 500. So they had a major problem in the backfield, and it affected the passing game. It affected Arch Manning, and it was, again, just so inconsistent with the offense. They needed more talent. They're not messing around. They went out and got some more talent, hoping that the issues that plagued them this season are going to be things of the past.
I was someone, like most people, because of real outcomes on the field, that was critical of Arch Manning early in the season, because yikes. But as the year went, and I had to walk that back a little bit here on the show, because I jumped the gun. I admit it. I was too quick to judge. It was Thanos talking about Nebula there. Perhaps I judged you too harshly. And Arch Manning, by the end of the year, was playing some pretty good ball. Is it fair with this lineup of weapons, presuming they get the offensive line right, because that can ruin any quarterback, literally any quarterback at any level, assuming they get the O-line to be at least an average unit, is it fair to put that Heisman playoff national championship pressure on Arch Manning again?
I think so. And look, last year it wasn't fair. It was ridiculous. I'm saying that as a lifelong Texas fan and a Texas grad and a guy who's covered the team for a long time. It was all overblown and over the top. And it just feels like because his last name is Manning, nobody can have a rational thought about him. You have to be super extreme one way or another. So it was way too over the top before he started, then way too much, oh, he sucks, this guy's a total flop and bust a couple of games into his season. And then, yeah, it turns out, no, he's actually a pretty good player, just like a lot of other first-year starting quarterbacks. He needed some time. He needed some reps. And also, again, he did not get enough from the 10 guys around him throughout the course of the year. But he ended the season, Spencer, on a high. 7-1 in his final 8 games. I think it was 21 total touchdowns to just 3 turnovers in his last 8 games. And it's not like Texas played a bunch of slappies. They had 2 wins against playoff teams and 3 top 10 wins in that stretch. Also 5 ranked wins in that stretch. So it's not like Arch Manning was just beating up on a bunch of nobodies. Again, he was putting up good numbers and leading Texas to wins against some really good competition. So now that he knows the offense, now that he knows what it's like to play in the SEC and in major college football, and you couple that with the weapons that Texas has added so far in the portal, yeah, I don't think it's super outlandish to think that he could be in New York next year and Texas could be making a run deep in the college football playoff once again in early 2027.
You heard it here, but you probably didn't hear it here. Let me try this again because that was terrible. What an awful way to end the show. You heard it here, but you probably didn't hear it here first. There we go. My acting professor from college is going to be so proud of me. Brad Kellner, Locked On Longhorns. Appreciate everybody listening. See you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.